Risa Barash, welcome to Listening with Leaders. You are the CEO and co-founder. I got to look at my notes.
Yes, go
Fairy
ahead.
Tales Hair Care. Found it. You could really mispronounce this, right?
Yeah,
FairyTalesHairCare.com. It's hair care for kids.
yes.
So,
Started in 1999.
wow. So I'm sort of stunned. 1999. That's 25 years.
Yes, I know.
That is amazing. Well, tell us the story. What is this and how did it begin?
So it is a crazy story. So I was many years ago a stand-up comedian in New York City, and I probably auditioned for every TV show that was never made in the 90s and early 2000s. And I started dating this lovely man, and he had a cousin who owned a children's hair salon in Long Island in New York. And Rob was out there one day, and his cousin had this shampoo that had rosemary oil in it, and they said that it helped prevent head lice. And Rob was watching all the moms in all the towns surrounding the salon come running in and buying the shampoo off the shelf. And he said, well, that's a gold mine. And he came home and he told me this idea. And no one, I was falling in love at the time, and no one really likes a happy comic. So I was sort of looking for, what was I going to do next? And I'm actually a fourth generation entrepreneur. And I guess something deep inside me says, I got this. And I got the shampoo. And I I went to the New York Public Library and I looked at all the ingredients because there was no such thing as Google at the time. And how embarrassing is that? I'm dating myself, but that's okay. And I cleaned up the formulas. I made a conditioner and a spray. And I started walking up and down the streets of New York City and going into salons and asking them if they wanted to buy it. And that's how it all started. And
And you
it
got you got
grew.
you got salon owners to actually start carrying the product.
I did. And then I got them to talk about it to all the moms because I had
Smart.
no money to do any advertising. Right. So that's really how it started. And sometimes they would buy it, sometimes they wouldn't. And I would offer to, I'd keep a little notebook where I would write down what they bought. And sometimes it was on consignment and I would go back and collect my money because no one ever said no after a while. And soon I think we started our first website. We started selling online very, very early on. I will tell you, my son is 22 and he was just born when we started our first website. So we started selling online long before most people were doing it. And then the retailers started coming to us. I mean, Bed Bath and Beyond is a New Jersey based business. So they sort of had heard about what was going on and they were our first customer and it just grew from there. And now we're found in Target and Walmart and CVS and Walgreens and everywhere, Ulta, anywhere you can think of, you can find
And
our products.
and that coming to a CEO of a major
Correct.
brand.
Correct. Talk about big change.
Wow.
Yeah,
And you had probably had no training in business or
none.
leadership or any of that stuff.
No, I actually didn't finish college.
Wow. So
I
how
dropped out of NYU.
how many employees do you have now?
25.
25. And
Yeah.
and everybody's based in New Jersey, or are they kind of spread around?
We're almost all based in New Jersey. I have 2 remote employees. That's it. I like my people close.
There you go. And
Yeah.
I'm presuming you outsource manufacturing to a
do.
manufacturer.
We do. In the United States, we never outsourced, overseas. And we have distributors, and I have 3 loading docks, and at our warehouse. And it's funny. I actually walked in through the warehouse this morning. It's true story. And I looked around, and it's palleted, 4 high, and there's hundreds of thousands of bottles in this warehouse. And I just looked around. And I said, I can't believe this is all mine. Like this is crazy.
That is amazing. So does your husband work with you in the business?
My ex-husband, and yes, he does. Yeah,
Oh,
good times. Talk about figuring out how to lead, right? There's one of them.
okay. Your personal relationship didn't work so well, but your business relationship still goes forward.
Correct. We did a beautiful job building the business, and he's just been very kind and sort of letting me, run what I run, and it works. It works for us for now. So
Good for you. So
yeah.
what is it? that gets you up in the morning? You've been doing this for 25 years, a long time. What is it today that gets you excited to get up in the morning?
My people, my staff. I
Yeah.
finally figured it out. It took a really long time to become a good leader and to know what I want and who I want and what kind of person is going to work with my style. Because as we said, I'm not a Harvard trained MBA who started a business. And once I finally learned that I lead the way I do and I hire for culture, I now have just the greatest team and I still love going to work every day.
So when you hire for culture, tell me more about that.
Um, Call me witchy. So some of that is really just, it's instinct. But I look for people that understand that it's a job and it's great and they love what they do, but it's not their everything. They have an outside life and they're comfortable talking about their outside life. I I don't hire big personalities, but I hire open personalities. And you can sort of get that when you're talking to people. And I can teach anybody how to market or sell. We're not curing cancer. We're selling children's hair care, right? So that's what I always tell people. So I like to have a good time. We do a lot of fun things in the office and I can just, those are the people I hire. I look for that kind of personality and that's how I do it.
What do you think the most important thing is that you've learned about leadership in the 25 years that you've been doing this?
To listen.
Listening with leaders.
Yeah. So there you go. See, I told you I'm going to end up asking you a lot more
That's
questions.
okay. Say more. Tell me about listening. We'll compare notes.
Well, I have no formal training whatsoever, just 25 years of hiring and firing. People always, I think they tell you what they need, whether they want to admit it or not. If you listen, you can sort of read between the lines and understand what they're looking for. And then I like to ask a lot of questions and let them talk and see what they need from me. It was it was very odd. I went from doing absolutely everything in this business, from packing boxes, to going to the post office at one point to mail them out, to running a multi-million dollar business. And so I've learned to just ask people what they want and figure out what it is and try to make it happen. I mean, I have this amazing young woman who on her first interview said she wants to be a manager. She wants to learn how to lead. And I said, great, I will make that happen for you. We are going to put you in, get you to a management position and I'm going to watch you grow and I'm going to help you grow. And we're going to have these great conversations about it. And that's just kind of, I've just been figuring out as I'm going along. And thank God, I think this is one of my strengths. No one would ask me to do math, but they certainly would ask me to sit down and have a good conversation.
The sense I'm getting the energy out of you is joy.
Yeah.
You have a
I'm
lot
a
of
happy person.
what?
Yeah. I'm a happy person. Life is good right now. I'm in a good, listen, everything ebbs and flows, right?
Right.
I'm in a good place. It's
Right.
nice. Yeah.
So how did you learn how to listen?
By not listening.
Yin and yang, huh? All right.
Exactly. I'm a Libra. I made some bad hires and they were good at what they were doing and but they just didn't fit in the culture and they didn't get me and they didn't get my leadership and they didn't like my leadership and I just knew that they didn't hear me and I wasn't going to hear them. So
They didn't listen to you.
yeah,
But
it's
speaking about
reciprocal.
listening, you used an interesting word. I call it listening other people into existence.
Ah, like
And they did not make you feel heard.
correct.
You were not validated by them.
No, and that's you can't work together if you don't listen to one another.
Right. But
Yeah.
it's but the mind shift is not only listening, but making sure the other person feels heard.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
that's the deeper level of listening that I teach,
I love that.
that so many people don't get.
No, they really don't. They really don't. I was just talking about this when I had a woman in marketing. She was a high up executive. She came from a really great, corporate company and wanted to be in a smaller business and could not understand, how I ran my business. She wanted me to be this buttoned up executive. And
Oh,
that's just not who I am. And I would sit and I would try to get her, you know, around because, you know, I can sell sand in the desert, right? So I can, you know, make a room full of people laugh. Like, how could I not get this woman to hear me? And, you know, finally I just said, we can't do this anymore, you know? So
yeah.
it's a heck of a lesson.
Sometimes people's egos get in the way, and,
Yes.
and they can't let go.
Yeah.
How do you learn? How do you move from doing everything to move into a broader leadership role and not micromanage?
Um, just time. I probably did for a long time. You know, I didn't really understand the art of hiring, so I made a lot of mistakes. I'm great at making mistakes because I'm okay with it. Like I don't really take it to heart for very long. And I figure they're all a lesson, I guess, at some point. So I made mistakes. I made some crappy hires and I figured that out. And then I would say, okay, what didn't I like about this? Let's not do it this time. And it was just it was a building block of just
You
getting
know,
better at it.
I've interviewed over 200 leaders on this show, and the one of them, one, if not the most important, it would be the second most important thing that leaders talk about is the importance of making good hires.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's not about numbers, it's not about finance, it's not about sales or marketing, it's not about
No,
development or whatever. It's all about who do you hire?
yeah, it's wild. Like it's the key to a successful business,
Right,
hands down.
hands down. And
Yeah.
every single successful leader I've talked to says the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you get so caught up in the negative and it permeates and you know, a bad seed in an office is like a cancer. And if you don't cut it out, it'll just I went through it. It was a wild experience not that long ago. I'm talking right before the pandemic. And I had three people that just were cancerous in the office. And I put my foot down. I was proud of myself. It's sort of not, you know, instinctually who I am. And I just walked in and said, out.
Wow, that takes
Yeah,
that takes courage and strength.
yeah. Well, this is my baby. You know, I mean, you know, I feel very responsible. You know, I obviously support my family and I have 25 employees and you know, I take that very seriously. So don't mess with my business. Don't mess with my kids. Don't mess with my business.
How do you manage work-life balance? I know you've got grown kids now, but how do you manage that?
I wasn't very good at it, but because I I was always very honest. And I always said that there are going to be days where I'm a better mom and there are days when I'm a better business owner. And I mean, listen, hindsight's 2020, but not being, you know, a stay-at-home helicopter parent, my kids are amazing and independent and, you know, just self-sufficient, wonderful adults. But, you know, I failed a lot of times, but my kids always knew they were loved. That was it. Like they just always knew that. And I figured after that, if I'm not there for a PTA meeting, someone will get over it one day. Or I'll pay for therapy.
Exactly. You,
Yeah.
you had a question you wanted to ask me? You're curious about my work?
Yeah, I would love to know. Well, I love that, you know, you've interviewed 200 CEOs. What do you, what kind of, I would just love to know what kind of personality traits that you find in them and where do they end up and what's their second and you know what's the second stage like how do you stop being a CEO? Do they stop being a CEO? I don't know, I just love all this stuff.
One of the most interesting things is the vast majority of successful CEOs are introverts, not extroverts. Although I interviewed a guy today who is an ambivert. He's over in New York City. I think he's in New York City. He's in New York City. He's an ambivert. He's both an introvert and an extrovert. But
I love that.
very few of the people that I've interviewed are true extroverts. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
That is pretty interesting.
What I've also found is that as CEOs mature, whether they own their own business or they're working for a board of directors, is what becomes in the beginning, success is defined by growing the business and making it successful. But they get to a certain age, mid-50s, maybe into their 60s, and now what becomes important is creating meaning in life. how do I create meaning? I built this business, my identity's wrapped up in it, but now I want to do more. What do I do? What's the next chapter of this? So we get a lot of more mature people are thinking along those lines. And I think that's pretty interesting.
I love that. That's pretty, yeah. I mean, no, I'm pretty honest. I'm in my late 50s, and I loved what I've created, and now I'm wondering what's next,
Right.
because I can see that, it's a multi-million-dollar business and it's amazing and I love it and I love the people, but I'm like, what can I do next? Like, or what's the next stage of this?
That's what happened to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I was a trial lawyer for 22 years, went back to school, got my master's degree, left the practice of law to become a peacemaker, and then in 2010, started the Prison of Peace Project with my colleague Laura Coffer. And we started out training 15 women serving life and long-term sentences in the largest, most violent women's prison in the world, how to be peacemakers to stop prison violence.
Wow. Okay,
And
that's amazing.
that project was and is amazing. Talk about creating meaning in your life. You watch these people, incarcerated people, completely stop prison violence just because they have a tool sets
Right.
to know what to do. Incredible.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah, well, thanks. In
Yeah.
fact, it was my incarcerated students' impetus that got me to write my fourth book, De-escalate, how to calm an angry person in 90 seconds or less, and then move these ideas out into the world. How literally do we make peace in our lives? And guess what? We do it by listening to emotions.
Right, exactly. I'd love to write a book one day. Since I was in the fourth grade, that's what I really wanted to do. So, I think I would have a lot to offer in this respect, right? I mean, obviously not classically trained to do what I did, and, you know, have crazy stories. I mean, I sat across the table from the buyer in Walmart, and he was, he wanted our products, and he told us he wanted them at a price. And I said, well, you can't have them at that price, because if I give it to you at that price, then I have to change everyone else's price. And I think that's going to be a problem. And he said, well, I want it at this price. And I said, well, it was so nice meeting you. Here's my card, and you can call me when you change your minds.
He was kind of
and
blown away.
and right, with shaking knees, I walked away.
He
He
says to
called me
me,
back.
"Normal."
Yeah, it was Walmart. I walked away from Walmart. It was crazy. But yeah, a year later, less than a year later, he called and said, okay, you win. What I usually do. What can I say?
That's fine for you.
Yeah.
I'm curious, as you think about it, you've got all 25 years of business success. What is it that's unique about you that's made all this happen?
I think we created something that really was not out there. Our claim to fame in the hair care industry is this lice prevention product,
Right.
which we've subsequently made different collections, but there was really nothing out there like it. So we created something that parents didn't just want, they needed. So I was able to sell the need. And I think it actually benefited me by not knowing how hard it was going to be. So I just thought it was fun, I mean, I thought it was fun to call up Target and say, do you want my products? And I don't know. I think I was fearless right from the start. And I don't know. I know it sounds crazy, but I truly am a fourth generation entrepreneur. My great grandfather started a flashlight and battery company in the Bronx, making batteries in his basement and selling them in a push cart, like in the 1920s or
Wow.
early, or even before then, actually. And then my grandfather took over the business. We had all the government contracts during both world wars. He has patents on, some, plastic injected whatever's. When our troops invaded Normandy, they all had, Bright Star flashlights because they were floating. So, my dad is a crazy entrepreneur. My father is 82 years old, and my father taught me about ChatGPT, artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
He has an app that's coming out that is amazing. It's called My Personal Vault, and it's all your information gets put into one spot, and it just gets farmed out. Like if you're applying for a mortgage or for an auto loan or insurance, everything, instead of like filling out the same form 102 times, it all gets, populated. So he's amazing. So I think I was just born to do this.
Wow. So fearless sounds like a unique attribute. I guess you'd have to be fearless to be able to get up and do improv comedy.
Yeah, I did. I did stand up for 6 years. I loved it. And then the greatest thing ever is my daughter, who is at NYU, said to me on Wednesday night, Mom, I think I'm going to go and do stand up. I
Ah,
have succeeded. Every other mother would have a heart attack. I was just like, yes.
well, I mean, there's so many lessons to be learned in that work because they're getting the laugh is hard and failure is a second away. You're
Oh,
constantly on the edge, right?
every moment. I mean, I had food thrown at me once.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was rough. There's nothing worse than like you can hear the ice melting in a glass. You know?
I know I play jazz violin, so I understand.
Oh, so you know, right? You just hit a
Absolutely.
bad note and you just feel like, oh, you know,
Exactly.
that's great.
But that's part of the excitement, saying, all right, I don't know what's going to come out. Let's see what happens.
Exactly. Well, that's how I felt about growing the business. You know, I was always like, all right, well, what would happen if we try this? You know, I still do that. I don't believe, I think it sounds terrible, but I think people sometimes take it a little too seriously and it impedes them from moving forward.
Right.
And I'm all about moving forward. We have another line of products called TBH Kids, and it's a tween personal care, right? Because the fairy tales customer is growing up. So I figured, well, I'm losing them because, you know, I've been around too long.
Right.
So how can I sort of keep them in the fold? And we created this line 5 years ago. And the packaging sort of does look like a text exchange. Busy, it's loud, it's very kid friendly with emojis and whatnot. You know, fast forward 5 years, it's all online, it's doing well, except these, you know, 10-year-olds are very vocal and they despise the packaging, despise it. And they're, I mean, literally sending us, if you have, I don't know if you're on TikTok, Doug, but you can go on our TikTok. I literally read them in some videos because they're hysterical. They truly are. I mean, God bless them. I mean, if I was their mother, I'd be a little upset, but whatever. So we decided that we were going to change, we're going to update the packaging. It was time for a refresh. And everyone was freaking out, you know, how can you do that? You know, you have, you know, it takes so long and not everything can be changed at once. How are you going to do this? And I just said, we'll figure it out. We'll put it on the website. You know, the wipes are going to be ready in September and, you know, the shampoo will be ready in November. And, you know, I'm like, you know, curing cancer here, guys. It'll all work out.
How did the new packaging work out?
Not even out yet. That was,
Oh,
yeah. It hasn't even rolled out yet. But you know, we're sort of teasing it out there. It'll be fine. You know,
yeah.
yeah.
People, and that's the thing about the internet. People get so laser focused, tunnel vision on
Yeah.
what's right in front of them that they can't see the forest through the trees.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm like, it'll be fine. I'm not worried. We make good products. I'm like, just trust me, I haven't failed yet. I'm like, the only thing that's really failed in all this is my marriage. I got the rest of it.
What do you do? What do you do for fun?
What I do for fun, I read a lot. I love to read. I go on lots of good hikes and we go upstate. My boyfriend and I bought a place upstate, so we like to go up there. I spend a lot of time in the city and hang out with my daughter who's there and wander New York and see shows and movies. Yeah, typical, nothing crazy.
Full urban existence. Good for you.
Yeah, I know. I'm not really. I New York State, you know, it's about an hour and 45 minutes where we go, and that's as rural as I get,
Mhm.
you know. But it's still on the Hudson, so I can probably float back if I needed to.
Well, it is pretty up there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Uh,
It is.
I
Yeah.
spent 4 years at Dartmouth, so that was
Oh, so you know,
East
it's
Coast,
beautiful. Yeah, it's nice.
my California boy. So
I get. I'm an East Coast girl. I get it.
well, I mean, I grew up in LA.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I grew up in LA and then I got out of there as soon as I could, went as far away as I could, which is
Yeah, Dartmouth is pretty rural.
right, especially
Yeah,
Southern California. And then when I came back, I moved down here to Central California and lived in the mountains. And
nice. It's so beautiful. Yeah, I
yeah,
have a friend in Santa Ynez.
San Ynez, right, up just north of Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
Drive through frequently. My wife's family lives, her brother's family down in Santa Barbara. So we're down.
Ah, that's beautiful there. Santa Barbara's really nice. I'm like, I could live in Santa Barbara.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
But
could
one
do
more
that.
question, I'll let you go. What's one thing about yourself, Risa, that we would never know about unless you revealed it to us?
Usually don't talk about my stand-up.
Really?
Yeah, because so sometimes people no, I noticed a long time ago they don't take me as seriously perhaps as they should because they think I'm a comedian. I don't know.
No.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't
but
know
I think
what would
I see that as a major strength.
well, I think when if you understand how to run a business and grow a business and be a CEO, you would look at it as a strength. But I think people just they want to talk about comedy and my old friendship with Dave Chappelle.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. It's funny. I'm probably an open book, so there's probably not really much out there.
Hmm. If I were to intuit into it, what would I feel? I don't know. You got a very strong intuitive sense. I'll call it that because that's not the way what it really is. It's really tapping into the energies of the universe, I think, that you tap into. You don't talk about that much, but that's what's going on with you.
Yeah, I'm very aware. I can my boy my boyfriend makes fun of me. I there's nothing I like more than to talk to people and just see who they are and you know feel them and see them and get into them and some are interesting and some aren't and so be it. It's all a good time. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. This has been such an enjoyable conversation.
Yeah, I'm gonna start reading your books. I'm really intrigued. So thank you.